Washington is moving on UFOs. The Trump administration pledges transparency on UAP and drone incursions over the United States.
I'm going to give you a report on drones about one day into the administration, because I think it's ridiculous that they're not telling you about what's going on with the drone.
But is the White House continuing the cover-up?
After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones.
Following the administration's puzzling response, Congress makes its own pledge.
Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs.
Washington, D.C. journalist Matt Laslo joins us with the latest. Will Congress get to the bottom of the UAP issue? Let's find out. Hey everyone, I'm Matt Ford and welcome to the Good Trouble Show. It's a special live edition. We're usually taped, but with this great guest, we thought we would do the show live, so we have the latest news. So UAP, otherwise known as UFOs, as everyone knows, is the topic just about every mainstream media journalist will not touch with literally a 10-foot pole. The ones that do simply parrot the debunking talking points given to them by their handlers in the Pentagon and the intelligence community. Today's guest is a journalist who is covering the topic without fear and, guess this, actually with integrity. Go figure. But first, please hit the subscribe and thumbs up buttons on YouTube. Leave a comment and let us know what you think about this episode. You can also find us on X at Good Trouble Show and everywhere else at The Good Trouble Show. You can also find us wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Search for The Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford. And if you would like to chip in to help keep the lights on, we always appreciate that. You can become a Patreon member of The Good Trouble Show by going to www.patreon.com/The Good Trouble Show. Sign up and you can support our work. Also today, since we are live, super chats are open and are a great way for you to show some love for our channel. I would also like to thank our Good Trouble mods. These folks, they always volunteer their time when we are doing these things, either if it's a live show like today or a premiere episode. They're the ones kind of keeping the trolls out. And Lord knows this show tends to be a big target of the trolls, and yeah, there are lots of them. Anyway, I just want to really give them a shout out. They volunteer their time, and in particular, I would also like to thank our segment producer, Allie Travis, who has been with our show now for, I think, around 6 months. I have to tell you this, as I've said quite a few times, this show has primarily been a one-man operation. We have our mod volunteers, and we have some other folks that are finally helping us with editing and our YouTube thumbnails. But Allie came along and said, "Hey, how can I help you guys?" And or you guys, me. And she came on board, and boy, I tell you what, she has just really turned things around in terms of communications and keeping up with emails and guests and all of that. So Allie, I know you're watching, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and everything that you are doing for this topic, because there are a lot of folks that are doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you guys have no idea about, and Allie is certainly one of them. Okay, moving on. Today's guest has written stories for Vice, Rolling Stone, Wired, and the Daily Beast. He has covered the political beat in Washington since 2006, and when it comes to confronting politicians about the UAP phenomenon, this guy has no shame in his game. Making his fifth appearance on the Good Trouble Show, please welcome Matt Laslo. Matt, how are you, sir?
Dude, I'm miserable, but That's because I became a political journalist 2 decades ago, so that's on me.
I don't know about that, but wow, five times. So does that mean you and I are going steady?
I guess. Oh, sookie now.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you're returning to the show. Yeah, the first show you came on was July 9th of 2023. Can you believe that?
Wow, time flies when you're covering liars for a living.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how you did. So how have you been? I hear things have actually calmed down in Washington since Trump took office.
Oh, you lie, but I like the way you lie. This is actually, and this will come up once we start talking about UAPs, but we got to remember, I just looked this up yesterday for a feature I was doing. Trump hasn't even been in office a month yet.
Wow.
And a lot has been upended and changed. And I think part of that's the way he ended the election in November after the win. They just really, whether it was taking Project 2025 from Heritage, directly off the shelf, or ordering some copies of it, but they just got to work very early. And so, I mean, the one good thing that we've seen out of this is your U.S. Senate is doing work for the first time in decades.
Go figure.
They've been actually in on Mondays and then also in on Fridays. Oh,
what?
Usually, historically, or at least under Schumer, they were just a 3-day-a-week Senate. And so It's interesting it's just all new dynamics. And that means lawmakers on the Hill are just kind of waiting, bracing. Republicans are trying to work in tandem with the White House. Then that kind of becomes difficult when he says he wants to take over Gaza and kick out all the Palestinians, because they're like, whoa, we don't know if we wanted that. And so, it's interesting times.
Yeah, I would imagine Trump would put one big ass golf course in Gaza if he were to take it over, and Lord knows how many gold-laden hotels he would have in there. But anyway, moving on. So later in the program, for you, Matt, I have some scandalous photos of one politician that I think is going to actually surprise you. So we have that to look forward to. I'm sure you can't wait.
Did you get a hold of Tim Burchett's nudes?
No comment.
Too soon?
Hey, all I know is that this is your 5th time on the show, so I had to do something to make it special. So anyway, okay, moving on. Let's talk about UAP and drones. So last November, of course, hundreds of drone enthusiasts came out in hordes and they unleashed their drone armada over New Jersey. So here is Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona speaking to you about this on July 29th.
Okay. I was curious your thoughts on what the White House said about the drones yesterday, that it's all FAA.
Well, I think that's what the last White House, it's not all FAA, it's just, they're drones. You know how many drones are bought on Amazon every year?
So that's what's
flying
over Luke Air Force Base?
Well, some of that stuff could be adversaries.
Yeah.
When I was stationed down at Pax River, right, test center, we used to have North Koreans, in the fence.
Yeah.
So, how do you get better video of something? You can get better video from a drone over the field than you can by standing at the fence of a military base. So, some of this is irresponsible hobbyists.
Yeah.
I think there is an aspect of this, it's our adversaries, it just makes sense that they would do this. The stuff over New Jersey, it's drones. It's not...
But it's just FAA. So FAA's proved all these, you believe.
Well, I think some of them are, like what the White House said yesterday about this, I saw some of it. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
The big giant drone, you know what that was?
Yeah.
It was a V-22 Osprey, which is a vertical takeoff and landing military logistics airplane that the Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps fly.
This is interesting. What shut down Langley for those 16, 17 day period.
That becomes a problem when you have, an adversary that's trying to collect intelligence flying over an air base. You could have airplanes crash into those drones, or somebody who lives in the area who's flying their hobby drone and they either lose control of it or they decide, I'm going to go and take a look and see what's on the airbase. They're big problems. That's why I've got legislation on this with Chuck Grassley about flying over military installations. If you're a hobbyist, that's not allowed.
Yeah.
And there's penalties.
Because Kane and Warner just had a classified briefing a month or so ago, and both of them are furious, saying after a year, no one in the government knew what was flying over Langley.
Well, we don't because we don't.
But that doesn't match with what the White House said yesterday.
No, I think the White House was talking about what was going on in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Unless I missed the whole point. I only saw that brief portion. I think they were talking about.
They said Jersey, yes.
Yes.
But the Jersey delegation was asking. I mean, we're seeing these intrusions. Gillibrand saw or heard complaints about them in Nevada when she was on a classified briefing.
Yeah, and I think some of this could be adversaries, and some of it could be hobbyists. I'd say for the most part, probably most of them are people that are operating their drones under FAA rules, or their military airplanes, or they're just civilian airplanes that if people are suddenly thinking, there's this whole thing about drones, that must be a drone.
Yeah.
So,
can I ask you a question about the Gabbard hearing?
Yeah, must be a drone. And, and I had no idea that they developed a new V-22 Osprey that is super silent. That's like, boy, our government is, our taxpayer dollars are really going into that. But yeah, Senator Kelly, who I think from here on out I'm going to refer to as Senator Drone. It's drones, and I tell you what, I know one New Jersey mayor who would beg to differ with him. So what's up with Mark Kelly?
Well, it's not even just Mark Kelly. And I think this is where many people, in the UAP community need to either update their lexicon or just be flexible with Congress's lexicon. Because these days, when Congress uses the word drone on Capitol Hill, they basically mean UAP or UFO, like literal unidentified flying objects. And so when we had the Trump White House come out and say, the FAA, they knew everything that was over, flying over Jersey. Well, for one, when we talk to Jersey lawmakers, they're like, no, that's not what those same federal officials told us. But then also, I had to go back to this December hearing in the House in the midst of all, the public upheaval and the public freaking out about what are these things, these craft flying over our heads and houses and schools, et cetera. Not to mention military bases and presidential golf courses, for lack of a better term. But in December, in the House Homeland Security Committee, we had the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, FBI and Border Patrol, but Border Patrol's under DHS, and the Department of Justice all testify that, hey, we have no idea what these things flying overhead are. And if the FBI was not consulting with the FAA, that's a problem. That's a problem that I thought we got rid of after 9/11.
I thought.
And so lawmakers aren't sensing that's the problem. There was plenty of communication between the FBI, FAA, and all these other bodies, including the Pentagon. And guess what? They all came back and said, no, we have no idea what these are. And so that's where, you can call them a drone if that's your little comfy blankie. But as far as the U.S. government has told us, at least factually, no, they have no idea what they are. So I'll talk to senators all day long about drones, but you can call it a drone or you can call it a marshmallow. It's still something you don't know.
Well, and the thing is, it seems that Senator Drone is really saying, for the most part, that these were just a bunch of hobbyists with their real drones, their DJI drones or whatever. So do you think Kelly is a natural skeptic, or what's your read on him?
So he feels like an eternal skeptic. Where this becomes interesting is that when you listen to Kelly, what he's told us repeatedly at Askapol, Askapol UAPs, Kelly is convinced these are foreign adversaries above American airspace. So he is so convinced, like he's such a skeptic of the UFO UAP topic that he won't even entertain that.
Yeah.
So because he won't entertain that, he's 100% convinced U.S. airspace, according to other senators and him, U.S. airspace is regularly impeded, regularly full of U.S. adversaries hovering over sensitive military bases and nuclear sites. I'm like, wait. Everyone, let's take a step back. Like, let's get further away from this issue because you seem like you're in the heat of some battle that like no one else is in. Like, hey, you're allowed to talk about what's actually flying overhead, but it's like you're so convinced and won't even go there to talk about UAPs that you're convinced our airspace is invaded by our adversaries. Like, why do we give the Pentagon about $1 trillion a year for our global defense if we can't even control American airspace? And that's where Kelly's not alone. Senator Gillibrand from New York, when she was in Nevada for a classified briefing last spring, I guess February-ish, but then she started talking about it in the spring. So about this time last year, well, so it's interesting. Her classified tour was Air Force Base, but then also a classified Northrop Grumman facility, and then a classified Lockheed Martin facility. And so she said in that classified portion of her trip, she was told of the, there's a constant problem of drones or whatever above sensitive U.S. testing facilities. Well, then we have Senators Kaine and Warner in Virginia who represent Langley, and Langley Air Force Base was shut down for 17 days in December 2023 because of what they call drone swarms. Guess what? They have no idea. And like a year after the incursions, Senator Kaine and Warner had a classified briefing in December where they both came out of there pretty furious, especially Warner, who's the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee now, because he's like, it's not that they're not telling us something they know. The Pentagon literally is clueless about what shut down Langley Air Force Base. And at Langley, so Langley, I looked this up last weekend. Langley's about 200 or so miles, a little shy of 200 miles from the White House here in DC. But because Langley is one of the few bases that has a fleet, I guess 36 F-22 stealth fighter jets. I guess I learned all this last weekend. It's the 5th generation US fighter jet. So these are the baddest machines in the world. Cost about $500 million a pop. So there's $12 billion worth of F-22s. And again, those F-22s, they can get to DC in 30 minutes. I mean, that's how fast they travel. So those F-22s at Langley in Southern Virginia are a part of the defense of Washington, D.C. and the White House and the nation's capital. Yeah, we have other assets closer, but those stealth fighters, boom, they can be here in a moment's notice, 30 minutes. That's very quick. But the Pentagon had to move $12 billion worth of our next generation fighters to another base because of these drone swarms. Well, guess what? Guess what the Pentagon's brilliant idea was to keep us from happening again? They bought nets. They bought better nets to cover up their F-22 fleet. Like, guys, are you kidding me? And that's where Senator Kelly and these folks just fall into that narrative. And that is where we see Gillibrand and some of these other folks being like, hey, we get the narrative coming out of the Pentagon and they're accidentally just dopey. We as Congress need to give them more assets. And for Gillibrand, that's where she's been fighting for in the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. She's been fighting for more sensors, more, radars to cover different levels of the air so that, hey, American airspace can't be invaded by a freaking balloon from China. Our skies are not safe. I feel like Congress kind of falls into this old, trap. Yeah, maybe pre-Pearl Harbor, we felt totally safe because we had an ocean on this side and an ocean on this side. But Pearl Harbor kind of shrunk that. And then since then, now that we're in this technological era, guys, the oceans don't necessarily matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing that I do, so Senator Mark Kelly is clearly a very intelligent man. He wouldn't have become an astronaut and all of that sort of stuff. So in my personal opinion, I don't think he's being truthful. And for me, the tell is that he sits and he talks about these things are foreign adversaries. Like he's talking about ordering a pizza. Like it's like no big deal. It's like, oh yeah, you know what? We've got foreign adversaries flying drones above all of our nuclear assets and this, that, and the other. Do you think that it's okay to have pineapple on my pizza today? It doesn't make any sense. He cannot be that stupid.
Well, and that's also where it's interesting with some folks like him, no matter what evidence seems to come forward, not that there's like a bunch of evidence coming forward, but for them just to instantly, and him, I'm lumping him in now with other people who've reacted to the New Jersey drone incursions, that the FAA approved all of these, and they're just willing to take any out and be like, see, we told you it was nothing, and they want to move on. So I think part of it is just like a willful ignorance. Kelly is in a different spot because he is a former astronaut, and his brother is a baller astronaut. And so, yeah, like if anyone knows whether there's something out there or not, yeah, maybe the people who spent time in space know better than others.
Yeah. Not to mention the guy said, he's on Senate Armed Services Committee and he's on the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence. But you know what? He's got a great bald head. All I know is that if I ever lose my hair, I hope I can call him up and he'll give me some tips on how to look so good.
But he kind of does highlight what I see as like the bigger problem on Capitol Hill, which is just, and we saw this with David Grush, because when David Grush, the UFO whistleblower, came out, and remember, he testified in front of the House Oversight Committee in a public hearing. So Congress took him seriously. What Congress has not done since then is refute, publicly at least, anything that Grush said.
Right.
And so there's this lack of curiosity. Like you have people now, multiple whistleblowers, just plopping heavy accusations on Congress's lap and saying what we're seeing, that, hey, we don't have control at a minimum of US airspace. And they're just like, fine, their life continues. And it's like, again, sir, if you are convinced that this is foreign adversaries, like a small drone you buy at Walmart, that can fit a small suitcase sized nuclear bomb. So like, why are you casual about this? Like, we saw two of America's like most iconic buildings taken down by two airplanes. I'm like, nobody thought that was possible until it was not just possible, it became our tragic reality. And so that's my fear, that Congress isn't leading. They're just taking whatever excuse the executive branch of numerous administrations is willing to throw their way and just be like, see, it's not that. We don't care what it isn't. Tell us what it is.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so on the other side of the fence from Senator Drone, we have Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, who you interviewed on what I think it was February 13th. Let's watch.
The White House explanation on Trump saying FAA approved them all.
The White House explanation on the drones?
Over Jersey. They say that the FAA approved them all, which is not what federal officials told the Jersey delegation.
I did not hear about this most recent point that you're making, that's the White House statement was. But the fact is clear that there were drones being flown in ways that were not FAA approved. So I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Is it a little troublesome to hear the White House say that? Did FAA approved all these? Because again, that's not DHS Secretary told you guys.
I was told directly by officials that is not the case. So I don't. But again, I don't know what you're referring to.
Fair.
So I would need to know. It might be they might only be referring to certain things. So I just don't know.
You got a day job.
I do. That's your office. I do. Yeah.
Do you have a day job? Or were you trying to hire him? Like what was going on there? It's like, hey, Booker, do you have a day job? I need somebody to help go and bug other members of Congress about UAP.
That's what I always say to lawmakers, and they're like, I don't know, I haven't seen it. I'm like, oh, you got a day job, I guess. Which is me telling them, I'm also a professor on the side. That's Professor Laslo telling them, go do your homework, because I know your day job doesn't consume that much of your time, because you spend 75% of your time raising millions and millions of dollars for your reelection, according to past senators.
Yeah.
I digress.
I get it. Okay, so you note that federal officials did not tell the New Jersey delegation that they were FAA approved drones, despite what the Trump White House is saying. And Booker stated himself, quote, "I have been told directly by officials that is not the case," regarding the White House comment. I mean, I don't know.
100%. And don't forget, folks, I guess it was just this December, so a couple months ago, we had, because folks were so freaked out over Jersey, or what was over Jersey, former, I know it's a curse word in some spaces on the internet, but Secretary Mayorkas, he was then the Secretary of Homeland Security, he gave a private classified briefing to the New Jersey delegation where he said, yeah, we're working on it, blah, blah, blah. There are obviously things said in there that I don't know because it was classified, but at least what the two New Jersey senators are saying coming out of that classified briefing is what the current White House, Trump's White House, is saying doesn't look a thing like what we were told when we were freaking out and when our constituents were freaking out. And we had that, it raised to the level of the Secretary of Homeland Security giving a briefing. And if the Secretary of Homeland Security in the Biden administration was not talking to the FAA about what was in America's skies, that, it's not only not plausible, it just makes no sense.
None.
It just makes no sense. And so that's where all these Jersey lawmakers are like, wait, what did the White House say? Because they're like, that has no relation to what these people we trusted. And they probably, they're dubious. The secretaries don't know a ton. They have a huge portfolio, et cetera. They're more worried about what the secretary's underlings, who were literally tasked with, hey, find out what these effing mysteries are. What is over American airspace? And those underlings, who were very good at their jobs, came back and said, well, we don't know. And so my gut kind of tells me that there was one or two or maybe five or even the FAA has a long list of drones that they've approved for flight. And they probably just sent that to the Trump administration when that list is cool, good. Some stuff flying over New Jersey. Ooh, what about these over here? Because that list you have does not match with what folks on the ground. And there's a police unit or two police units in New Jersey that now have UAP wings, branches, where these units go out and search for them. Yeah, they need federal funds and stuff, but as much as this White House wants everyone to move past this, New Jersey officials and New Jersey voters aren't moving past it. They're freaked out.
Yeah, and as they should be. And this whole thing with Senator Mark Kelly saying it's a V-22 Osprey. I don't know. Maybe they didn't tell the officials in New Jersey about this V-22. And I don't know if you've ever been around one of those things. It is one of the loudest aircraft I've ever seen or ever heard.
Wait, one of those that my nephew just my nephew just became a Marine. Congratulations,
awesome!
Dylan.
Congrats, that's great.
I warned him. So the night of the crash in the Potomac, I was texting with him because I was up late watching that tragedy and crying and all that stuff. And he's out there in California. And, we were texting and I kind of warned him, hey, never getting an Osprey. Because like Ospreys are just known to crash and kill soldiers. And I think they have a special name for him. But he's like, yeah, I know. I've been warned.
They call it the death. They call it the death tube.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm making that up. But...
No. It's literally, I think it might be the death spray or something.
Okay.
But literally, Congress should know about that. If we have this advanced military plane that can go, act like a helicopter, we should at least be making sure that they're not regularly killing soldiers.
Yeah.
And so that's where you kind of sense with folks on the Armed Services Committee, like Kelly, that they're not just derelict of their duty when it comes to American airspace.
Sure.
They're derelict of their duty when it comes to protecting American soldiers. And the way that this Congress and recent past Congresses has become the prophecy of Dwight Eisenhower, where now the military industrial complex is just so woven into the fabric of Congress that they're hurting soldiers, but they're also neglecting their most basic duty of protecting American airspace. And I believe the clip you played, because he brought up the Ospreys to me earlier this year, I think I interviewed him. Yeah, I've been talking to Kelly about this since last July, but he wasn't talking about Ospreys back then. So I'm pretty sure the clip you played was when I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago,
correct,
specifically about the Jersey incursion. So yeah, he's maintained, the same talking points or whatever for a year, even though the evidence has changed. But also he hasn't demanded any evidence. And that's where his coworkers, Senators Warner and Kane, who are demanding evidence, because Langley was shut down, they haven't gotten any answers. And that's where I would just beg Senator Kelly to do your job. And you don't even have to work that hard. Hire a new staffer who's more curious and who knows the Pentagon.
I don't know. Maybe Kelly's spending, as opposed to reading briefings or asking for whistleblowers to come in. I mean, maybe he's spending more time waxing his bald head than he is actually doing his job. I don't know, but he sure seems pretty clueless.
This is between you and I.
Yeah.
I had a friend whose birthday it was last Monday, and he's a Phoenix Suns fan, but San Antonio Spurs is his team, and they were in town. And so we went to the game, and I might have bumped into a certain senator astronaut at the Spurs game. Hey, whatever. I was there, but que sera, sera.
Yeah, there you go. So speaking of whistleblowers, let's turn to whistleblower Jake Barber. Here is an interview from February 9th with you chasing down Representative Eric Burleson. Let's watch.
I was curious, have you been able to check out that new whistleblower, Jake Barber?
I haven't.
Allegations?
No.
Oh, no.
Is he the one that was one of the people that was working with David Grush?
I believe so.
I've heard. Okay, so I heard an interview. I've been caught up with so many other things. I need to look him up.
I think it was Ross. He was on News Nation with Ross.
Mm-hmm. The British guy?
Yeah, check it out. Because I'm curious if you guys are going to maybe want to bring him in to hear his testimony.
Wasn't he talking about... okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I'll look.
Check him out.
Yeah, Ross Coulthart, that British guy. That's we have to send that clip to Ross. Who is Australian, in case people don't know. But that British guy.
I looked that up. He's originally from the UK, but then he moved to Australia, I believe.
Okay.
As I put in our post at askapol.com, I got that from Wiki. And at Askapol, we don't trust anything, especially not Wiki. I need to fact check that one. But this is interesting, and I haven't reported it yet, but Congressman Burleson last week, so this coming week, because of President's Day, the U.S. House of Representatives gets not just Monday off, they're taking the entire week off, which, because why? Because you've worked at all this year?
Yeah.
Anyway, but so he came up to me last week and, kind of singled me out and was just like, hey, I didn't have my recorder on. We were just chatting, but he was like, hey, so I've watched about like half of Barber's interview with Ross. And then he's like, I found an email address. He reached out to some of his sources. One of them passed back his email. So he started communicating with Barber and he wants to more formally interview him and stuff.
Good.
And so that's where I know people kind of hear that and they're like, what the heck is the UAP caucus doing? Blah, blah, blah. Like everyone has to like take a step back and remember Congress has a lot on their plates. And especially at the start of a new administration, most all of the Republicans who are a part of, who are central to the UAP caucus, like they did not win their election on UAP issues.
Sure.
They won their election as, hard right, for lack of a better term, teabaggers. But like a couple of those members are the ones who ousted former Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Right.
Which means about half of the Republican Party sees them as the traitors, really sees them as the fools who made the party look so dumb and foolish mid-session last in the 118th Congress. And so that's where you have a lot with, in this case, a little wonky, but with the new administration, because they have the Republican trifecta of the White House, the Senate, and the House, they're going to use special, procedural tools where they don't need 60 votes in the Senate. So they can bypass the filibuster with this thing called reconciliation. And like to pass reconciliation because, and that's where they want to like include their tax reform.
Sure.
They want to include, deportation policy, all of that, and like give a ton of money to the administration to start the mass deportations that most of them did run on. And so they've been consumed with all that. And because Speaker Johnson can only lose one Republican vote in the House right now, they all have a lot of bargaining power, which might be why some people in the UAP community are like leaning on them hard right now and being like, hey, demand some of this, which I think we did kind of see with Congresswoman Luna and the others being given this task force on government secrets, which is
we're going to get to that in a minute. Oh yeah,
I know. We'll see where they go with that. So all that to say, Congress, especially Republicans right now, they are focused on this ticking clock, and the government runs out of funding in 5 or so weeks, here in mid-March. So they've been consumed with all that stuff. So I get why they would miss some stories here and some stories there. But Barber, like, come on, in this space, tell me you don't have a staffer with a Google alert for like new UAP whistleblower.
Yeah.
But now that Burleson's been informed of it by us at Askapol, he's now looking into it and reaching out to Mr. Barber.
Yeah, and this is why you're doing God's work there, Matt Laslo. That's all I have to say. You're holding these people accountable. So speaking of other representatives, let's listen to your interview with our UAP brother, Representative Tim Burchett. Oh, here we go.
You look into this Jake Barber guy yet?
I tell you I don't, and I do. I apologize. There's so many of these guys that are.
This is the new David Rush. You haven't seen it?
I have not, but I don't think I have. What's he whistleblowing about? He's
similar as Rush.
There's a. Is he the guy that's saying that there's a network? There's a recovery unit or something?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I might have read something on that. And there's just so many of those guys. And honestly, I worry about it being a plant just to steer us off another, down some rabbit hole.
Yeah. So who do you guys want? Have you guys even had UAP caucus hating that, or you guys focus on budget and everything else?
This budget stuff's kind of derailed everybody.
Yeah. So no plans yet
None yet.
for a confab?
I don't think so. There could be.
Yeah. I'll keep my eyes out.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. Appreciate it.
I'll get it.
Yes, sir.
You should have asked him if he has a day job. I'd be curious about that. So he clearly doesn't seem to know, or claims he doesn't seem to know who Jake Barber is, which just blows my mind. And he stated, quote, isn't he the guy saying that there's a recovery unit or something? But yeah, it just bizarre. I don't understand it.
That's where, and I get that because, and this might show why I'm a swamp creature. I've been here 19 years, but like, I get it because I didn't really necessarily know Barber's name 3-4 weeks ago, again, because the fire hydrant of the incoming Trump administration has just been so intense of flowing on us, the media. But if it's flowing on us that way, it means it's also, hitting members of Congress of both parties that way. Again, not to defend swamp creatures, but when you have, I think it's more than 50 executive orders, and I hate how a lot of news organizations are just parroting what Trump's saying, like, oh, it was more than 100 executive orders on day one. No, it wasn't. It was like 47 or something. But like, so yeah. But so because all this stuff is coming at us, like so I was actually impressed that Burchett kind of like knew of the program at least. So he had heard of it a little bit. But to me, the bigger takeaway is, because it seems like some members of Congress have heard this and these claims, and it doesn't seem like they're rushing to talk to Barber as they did for Grush. I'm still trying to get to the root of why that is, because Grush was trusted and is trusted by so many members of the House, especially the Oversight Committee, whether it's Jamie Raskin, AOC, or Nancy Mace, or Burchett and these folks. When he came out of that hearing in 2023, everyone was saying, yeah, we trust him. We want to hear what he has to say in his skiff because, a sensitive, compartmentalized, a classified briefing setting. And so they never got that. And so you are seeing some energy with the UAP caucus where they now kind of like want to bring Grush back in to a skiff if they're allowed to. And this is where they still don't have that power because they don't have a select committee or an empowered select committee. And so we'll see as this rolls forward, and especially with the Republicans, part of the UAP caucus, Burchett, Luna, they kind of have so much trust in the Trump administration when it comes to transparency or disclosure that they seem to be not worried. This issue doesn't seem to be as high on their radar as it was in the past administration. Again, that might just be growing pains from this new Congress and new administration. And maybe like, oh, this will be what they really focus on, after they get over this funding hump, and funding the federal government. Again, that March deadline is coming. And so if anyone in the UAP community is like, man, Askapol.com has been pretty freaking lame this year. Yeah, because we're only as good as our sources.
I hear you. And I've said time and again, I mean, I'm a kind of centralish liberal guy, and I've always said that this whole UAP topic, it really needs to stay bipartisan. And my hat goes off to Congressman Burchett. I mean, and because I think he's really done a good job of that. And while I may not agree with the congressman on everything, the guy, I'm going to show you some photos that prove that he's every bit the chill uncle that I suspected he would be. He's kind of like the cool uncle at Thanksgiving. So, he's not only part of the UAP caucus, but I would argue that he is also part of the cool kids caucus. And here are some unseen photos of him. Actually, they have been seen, but I wanted to show you this. He clearly is on the wacky weed. I mean, who would have known? So there he is, master spliff roller, and let's see here. There's some more of him here. I guess he's at one of his town halls. I don't know, what is that like? I'm not a pot guy, but what's that, like a pound or 10 pounds? That's looks pretty big.
I grow my own cannabis here in Washington, D.C., a couple miles from the Capitol, and there'd be a handful of ounces.
Yeah, but boy, look at his red eyes, man. He's Burchett is really baked, and there he is. He's hanging out with who is that? Woody Harrelson. I don't know who the lady is in the middle, but clearly he's Burchett is gaining a lot of friends with his new advocacy for Mary Jane, I think is what they call it. Now what is it there? It looks like. He's spraying out some smoke and MTG is sucking it.
I actually haven't seen these. I think I might have seen, because one of my buddies might be tagged in one. But again, life's been busy, so I don't have time to stick around on the internet. And this is amazing.
Oh yeah, no, this is great. And then and who says that Congressman Burchett does not have a bipartisan bone in his body? I mean, there he is. They've clearly been hitting it probably back in the one of the back rooms of Congress. There, Pelosi looks pretty baked as well. So
Hey, this feels like a beautiful time to plug Askapol Drugs, because we cover cannabis for another Askapol website. We have Askapol UAPs. But then we have Askapol Crypto, Askapol Drugs. I missed this one for Askapol Drugs.
Yeah, well, I would venture to guess that Congressman Burchett may end up being like one of your big sponsors there. And then there he is. Yeah, so the guy he's all tatted up now. I mean he is an OG. And then of course, I always wondered how Trump is working overtime with all of these executive orders. I think what you said is 100 or whatever, but that is one big Bob Marley reefer. That is certainly big one. And
he's got a drawer full of cocaine to keep up at this pace.
I think it's more like Adderall, but no comment there. But anyway, that fantastic artwork was from this guy named who runs this account, Disclosure Memes on X. And and folks, again, if you're enjoying this episode, please hit the subscribe button and give a thumbs up. This really helps us grow our channel, and our super chats are open. Okay, moving on with the show. Now that we had our little half baked, I use emphasize word baked. Attempt at some comedy here. Here is Anna Paulina Luna on the task force from February 11th.
Hey. So congratulations, Ms. Chairwoman. So there's going to be disappointment in the community saying, why lead JFK? Why not just focus on UAPs?
In USOs and UAPs. But the task force is typically set for 6 months, and this is the first time that we're actually getting a task force that's going to be focusing. And so I'm hoping to set up a congressional delegation to a friendly country that actually has a fully declassified program, has a program for disclosure that's already been set up, which to my knowledge those exist. But also looking into what we can get declassified from the Pentagon. If there is anything, the Secretary of State, as you know, Rubio has been very supportive.
And now, this is a lot. Epstein, 9/11,
Isn't it great?
UAPs. Are you going to get a staff?
Yeah, we have a staff. So we have multiple attorneys working. We have actually the entire oversight staff is at our disposal to work on this.
And when it comes, do you know when you may want to have your next UAP hearing?
It's going to be probably after JFK or maybe after Martin Luther King, but we're definitely having two. We're going to have one specifically on UAPs, USOs, but also, again, I'm not just trying to have another hearing and bring in people. I want evidence, and so that's what we're pushing for, and that's why we have the letters that's going out.
And so you're hoping that more whistleblowers might approach you all.
Find evidence.
Yeah.
Declassified evidence.
And now, have you been able to look into the latest whistleblower, Jake Barber's
I have not.
claims? No. Did you guys ever have a official follow-up with Grush?
They
in the
denied,
classified?
so the last administration and agencies denied his security clearance, which is why we couldn't get back into the SCIF. So that's going to be followed. Can we get him an active security clearance for breaking in the SCIF?
Yeah, and so that's going to be a top priority. Maybe
Well, now, yes, 100%. But now that we have a task force, we can actually do something.
Yep.
So,
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. I think I'm glad she's doing it, and Comer is supporting this thing. And by the way, we are going to have probably this week or next a special episode with some guests from the UAP Disclosure Fund to discuss specifically what needs to happen to get David into a SCIF. There's a lot of information that we will be sharing, and I would encourage everyone to follow us on X at Good Trouble Show. That's when we will announce the episode. So back to Luna. So she notes that the task force or task forces are typically set up for around 6 months, and that she hopes to lead a delegation to a friendly country with a declassified program for UAP disclosure that has already been set up. All I have to say is that I hope it's not any place that Jaime Maussan or whatever the mummy guy is. I hope she's not going down there to Mexico or wherever that guy's at.
Well, I mean, because her new task force is so broad, for all we know, she may be planning a trip to Epstein Island. Like, to me, it's really astounding. Like,
yeah,
you guys as the UAP caucus are already laughed at by many of your colleagues. Me as a political reporter and journalism professor, like, I've taken knocks in my credibility for taking this issue on, which is why I keep asking serious questions and trying to drive these lawmakers to ask serious questions themselves of this White House, but also the last White House, et cetera. And so I almost feel like the UAP caucus is getting trolled a little bit here. Like, so the leadership, you've asked for a select committee very specifically focused on just UAPs, just the unknown. At the end of last year, I was asking them, like, hey, knowing that your colleagues use different terminology and call everything in the sky a drone if they don't know what it is, like, why don't you extend UAP to also include UAS, unmanned aerial systems or whatever.
And V-22 Ospreys. They should include that. Yeah.
And so, like, what did we see happen? We saw Republican leaders reject just a straight up UAP caucus, which, like, is a present day problem. Whatever the FAA is saying now, well, we have senior senators like New Jersey's senior senator, Cory Booker, saying, no, what the White House is telling me is a lie compared to what other officials have told me. So that's a true and clear present day danger that America doesn't know what's over their skies.
Yeah.
And now that task force, they've been given a task force, which doesn't have subpoena power, but if they can convince the chair James Comer, they can convince him to subpoena something, like, oh, then they can look into government secrets on JFK, which is the first hearing that Luna says she wants to have. So her top priority is the JFK assassination. Like, I'm curious, are you going Oliver Stone version, or are you going, like, because I've read a lot of history, and there's a lot of different directions you can go, ma'am. I'm eager to see which direction you do go, because many of those directions you're going to be laughed off eternally by your colleagues and by my colleagues in the media. Yeah. So tread that minefield lightly. Some advice from communications professor.
Yeah.
And then after JFK, they have the MLK Jr. assassination. And then they have the 9/11 stuff. Okay.
Right.
So what, like, are you going to explore whether Dick Cheney took down the Twin Towers with dynamite and explosives? Because if that's what you're going to explore, which seems to be one of the big lingering conspiracies
Seriously?
out there on 9/11. So in some communities, in some far-flung corners of the internet. So like, I'm very curious on what she or her committee or Republican leaders think the American people don't know about 9/11, because we got the 9/11 Commission by some very serious thinkers in a broad ideological group. All right, tell us where they were wrong. I'm all ears.
Sure.
But then you're also throwing in UAPs and UFOs. And like, I just learned since they announced this task force that task force only have a 6-month shelf on the life, or a life shelf, you know? So they've got 6 months and they're leading with JFK. Then they want to do a hearing on not US soil. So all the media, you know, the thousands of reporters who were there at the David Grush hearing, most of those reporters are domestic US reporters, even if they're reporters for overseas outlets like The Guardian or whatever. So whatever country you go to, you're going to lose just initially hundreds of reporters who would be covering a serious hearing on Capitol Hill. So I don't know. And then that she doesn't know Barbara and them, like, I don't know, guys. A lot of people in this community believe in gatekeepers and deep fakes, all that. I don't know. With this one, I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. And so far, I have seen nothing that makes me think this task force is serious. Nothing.
Yeah, well, you know, and one of the things that's interesting is she notes that UAP hearing after, you know, so she says UAP hearing after JFK or MLK, and that she is looking for declassified evidence, not just whistleblowers. What the hell does that mean?
So again, I think this is where there's a lot of Trump Kool-Aid flowing around this town. And
it's orange.
Oh, I don't know if you've heard that Trump can walk on water. Like, hey guys, I get that you supported Trump. Like, I get that Biden lost. I have family members who supported Trump. I've trained as a political communications professor. I've trained a Trump press secretary in the same classroom where I trained a senior administrator at MoveOn.org. So whatever, like, I get it. But guys, don't give him and his administration a free pass.
Exactly.
If anything, if you're a Trump supporter, you have an in that we don't have. Us in the media, we don't have it. Democrats on Capitol Hill don't have it. Moderate Republicans don't have it. So if you are an early MAGA adopter and like, boom, you're still elated that Trump won and he's doing everything he promised, you have a seat at the table that others don't. And that's where you have power to call out Luna and the Trump administration when the Trump administration says it's the FAA that they know what's above US skies, when there's no evidence of that. There's only evidence that they just made up a freaking lie, pulled it out of their arses, and just shared it. And then now it's been debunked, not by my colleagues in the media, because they just moved on with most of Congress and just said, oh, we're going to believe them on this. And so, no, guys, keep pressing them in questions. And when your allies, the MAGA allies or whatever, when they are literally just crawling into the lap of and just saying like, oh, we trust, they're going to give us disclosure because Trump said it. No. Politicians say a lot of things. And I get that Trump wasn't a politician when he ran in 2016. But guys, he's a politician now.
Oh,
he's a
for sure.
former president of the state who's the current president of the United States. And so don't, like, guys, if anything, he might be being deep stated. So maybe he's getting lied to by the FAA or whatever, which means you all listening who support him, you have a seat at the table to be like, hey, we're demanding more. And if Luna and them are just going to take the table scraps sent them by an administration that we already see doesn't take this issue seriously, that just thinks they can lie to the American public in week one and say, no, FAA approved all this stuff. Really? Why would the FAA approve flights over a former president's country club and a future president's country club? FAA should not be allowing flights over Bedminster.
Correct.
Yeah, Trump's never there, but that's still airspace that needs to be secure in case the president goes there. If the president has a place in LA that he only goes to once a year, that needs a Secret Service presence year round. Like, that's how this works. And so for them just to make this stuff up and just say, oh, here's an easy answer. Like, if you're in this community and you care about these issues, don't buy it. And when we see these people on the Hill just buying what the White House is selling us, like, no, remember, this beautiful little document called the Constitution means that you're not a part of a party. You're not a party member. You're a citizen of the United States. Like, the founders actually rejected a two-party system when they were crafting the Constitution. Then, to their ever shame, what did the first Congress do under President George Washington? They immediately became a two-party system. And Thomas Jefferson even hired for $250 a month, hired a French translator who ran his partisan mouthpiece. Yeah, I believe it was the Gazette of the United States. But so yeah, we became this hyper-partisan system day one. Fight against that, but get back in tune with the founders' wisdom where hey, it's cool if that's your party. It's cool if you're a Democrat. It's cool if you're a Republican. That gives you a seat at the table. Use that to sharpen your own party. Like, a big reason Democrats lost in 2016 was because they just let these party elites steer the party to another doomed defeat.
Yep.
I bet if they actually listened to everyday members of their party, they'd be like, oh, maybe this shit's bonkers. Maybe this is bonkers. And so that's where you as Republicans, especially if you're MAGA and you adopted early, you and my family members have a better chance of changing opinions and minds and directions. And right now, it just seems like the Trump White House gave Luna and the UAP caucus members a big batch of Kool-Aid, and they said, drink it. And they drink it. And then instead of being a UAP caucus, now they're a JFK, Epstein, 9/11 caucus. Really? Huh? Because what does your knowledge of UAPs have to do with the history of JFK's assassination, let alone the history of 9/11, the still being uncovered, disgusting bipartisan history of Epstein, who there are many pictures of Trump and Epstein. So yeah, if Luna comes out and she does an Epstein hearing where she really tries to investigate Trump's role with that little disgusting piece of shit, oh, I'll be there watching it. I'll be in the hall taking names. People squirming and getting out of there early. No, that's what I do at UAP hearings, because the two have nothing to do with each other. And so, I don't know. I'm always willing to be proved wrong, but I haven't, again, until Burleson came to me and said he's looking into Barber, not a single Republican or Democratic member of the UAP caucus even knew who Barber was until Askapol asked them about it. And so, guys, demand more. Your UAP caucus just got neutered. You all wanted a UAP select committee, but it seems like instead of that, they're going to go lower than even the UAP caucus, which is meaningless. And now you have a task force for 6 months to investigate every mystery under the sun. Are you kidding me?
In 6 months.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, in 6 months, no less. Okay, let's our final interview that we're going to play here. This is the chair of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman James Comer.
Look at this young man. How are you?
Good.
Ooh. What this new task force?
Yeah.
That's a lot on their plate.
Yeah, it is. Luna has a good relationship with the White House, so hopefully we'll have a good chain there of information that we'll be able to provide everyone. A lot of curiosity and all those things.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, they were asking for just a UAP select committee.
Yeah.
Was it your guys' idea to broaden it?
This is pretty much that plus some other stuff. So, I think it'll be the most interesting deal, you know. So, and Luna's a good person. She's got a good relationship with the White House, and she has a passion for the UAP stuff and a lot of the other secrets. That's the way I would classify them. They're secrets that the American people care about. They want to know who's on the Epstein list.
Yeah.
They want to know about what all was involved with Epstein. Did the government know? Were they blackmailing people? I mean, there's just so many questions that people have, and it all revolves around a distrust of the government. If you're ever going to regain trust in the government, you have to be transparent, and that's what the goal of the task force is to get transparency for the federal government.
Did the idea to broaden it beyond UAPs come from you all, from the Speaker's office?
It was conversations with Luna. So this was something that she and I discussed. I think it's a worthy project.
And now, it seems like there's some nervousness, though, letting some folks run wild on the UAP topic.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm curious about that. I don't know anything, but I don't know anything about it. So.
Yeah, me neither.
Right. You keep up with it more than I do.
They don't let me know anything fun, though.
Yeah.
And, have you guys been communicating with the White House? Do you think
she's been communicating with the White House on that stuff, not me.
But a lot of it comes down to them and how much they're going to be willing to.
Right.
Yeah. But the feeling is
but
it's kind of a new day.
Wants to be. I think he wants the American people to know the truth. Trump, he said that, and this task force will hopefully be focused solely on that because you got all these other committees focused on budget reconciliation, focused on oversight, focused on cryptocurrency. This task force just focused on that with a bunch of the president's friends. I think it'll be good.
I mean, I've been curious about the Trump pictures with Epstein, just as I'm curious about the Clinton ones with Epstein. Have a good one.
Yeah, I've been curious about the Trump pictures with Epstein and the Clinton pictures with Epstein. As soon as you mentioned the Trump pictures with Epstein, did he literally sprint out of there? How did he react?
He literally that was a hard transcript to write, and we've got the transcript at AskapolUAPs.com because he was at first he's like, yeah, he felt the joke, and he was like, yeah, and then he's like, oh. No, I don't know about that. Literally, I'm like, of course you don't know about that. You ain't investigating Trump. Yeah. You guys feel like you're the oversight committee for Biden and that. Guys, again, the founders envisioned a nonpartisan Congress or a bifurcated. They envisioned 6 or 8 different parties. I think anyone who just carries the party line is a fool. Literally.
Yeah.
If you agree with your party 100% of the time, or if you disagree with your party, the other party 100% of the time, you are a fool. You're not worthy of my time. Literally, iron sharpens iron. The only way to improve the swamp is for Republicans to call out Republicans, Dems to call out Dems. And the fact that we're getting this new task force, but right off the bat, doesn't even care about the Trump pictures with Epstein, but is really curious about the Clinton pictures with Epstein. I'm just calling foul. No.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how corrupt all these bastards are and how to avoid this shit going forward. No. Root out the weeds in your own yard and then start talking about your neighbor's overgrown BS hedges.
Yeah. Well, and the thing where I'm concerned about this task force is, as big an ego as Trump has, and whether you love him or hate him, the guy, he has a big ass ego, and he has this sort of mandate, if you want to call it that. So where I'm worried, and what set this worry in my mind in motion was how they responded to the drone thing. But if he comes out and he continues to say this drone stuff is a bunch of BS, the UAP stuff is a bunch of BS, if he happens to say that, I don't see Luna or Comer fighting him. Like, I don't see them throwing their own president under the bus. That's just I've seen it on the Democratic side too. They're we're going to do that for Biden.
Not even throwing them under the bus. Like, guys, this is where Washington is corrupt. And this is where we have to not use the language that my town and my industry, the media, uses. Because no, it's actually good for Luna and Comer, and they could do it privately, but call out Trump and be like, hey,
yeah,
when you guys said it was the FAA, millions of people laughed you guys off.
Yeah.
And so that's where getting that, you all pressuring your party, whether you're Dems or ours, pressure your public officials for more.
Yes.
Because whatever they're giving you, whatever small morsels they're giving you, is not nearly the meal you need for sustenance, and to sustain your life. And so that's where lawmakers have for too long gotten away with just like, telling this group what they want over here, telling this one what they want over here, when it works out for them. Like, no, we have the internet, we have all this stuff, like video, etc. No. Call out your own. When they say stupid stuff that's easily, verifiably wrong, call them out. And hopefully that will get them to do better, and maybe eventually we'll get half transparency, half,
quarter
disclosure.
transparency.
Like, we'll take what we can get. But that's where, like, I'm more curious when Trump, I believe, was on the campaign trail, if not a little after the election, but when he was like, yeah, I know about Area 51. Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, if I was getting a coffee with the president, I'd be like, hey, so what do you know about that? And like what I believe folks heard with that Comer audio, he's the chair of the big oversight committee. I was like, wait, where did this come from? And he's like, we're very differential to members of the UAP caucus or whatever. So that's why I have more questions. Like, wait, is this what you all envision? I, again, need a little more access. And this week, Congress is going to be gone. But look for it pretty quickly here at askapol.com or askapoluaps.com. Because I'm going to be asking the Democrats, but also the moderate Republicans, like, hey, did you also want to be a part of an Epstein, 9/11, MLK, JFK committee? Like, if anything, if you guys are just getting limited resources and you have to rely on Chairman Comer and the Oversight Committee's resources, I don't think you got much of anything, or you might have gotten nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you literally might have been handed nothing. And now they're just going to permanently make you all fools. Like, literally, you're going to go out there and turn this issue where, like, there was a reason there was thousands of reporters interested in David Grush's testimony, because he was serious. Congress has forgotten that this is a serious issue that deserves dedicated time, and like, literally refute everything. Like, if you know the answers, like, come out and refute it, because the allegations are so serious that without you refuting David Grush, like, what else matters? Because literally, if the government's going to hide those secrets from members of Congress who are supposedly focused on those secrets, And like, cool. Nothing they produce is worth any of our times.
Right.
Because we know they're just going to be placated like, oh, there's a little sugar on top of that turd. Like, no, it's still a fucking turd.
Yeah. Shine it to a high sheen, as I like to say. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's better than nothing, but like if it were me, I would, if I were Chairman Luna, I would do the most important thing first, which of course, in my view, is the UAP UFO thing, then do JFK, and then, I don't know, you put the Epstein thing at the bottom. I mean, not that what happened there wasn't a travesty, but it's like you got to prioritize it because they're going to run out of time.
Exactly, and that's where this feels like they're just running down the clock on these, fools. Literally, that's what they'll say. And they'll, like, a lot of these lawmakers, serious chairmen, chairwomen, they literally won't talk to me anymore unless they know it's not about this issue.
Really?
I still like to make them sweat.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about this issue when they're, when I grant them off the record.
Yeah.
And so that's because they have been laughed off and leadership's enabled that. And so whatever seriousness and, national security, the hefty weight of Grush's accusations, that now feels like a distant past.
Yeah.
And the way the UAP caucus, which I guess still exists, but now it's this secrets task force. And guys, just contemplate that. The evolution of a UAP caucus after David Grush, who worked for the Intelligence Committee, communities. Like, he worked in the belly of the beast, and he's like, hey, this is what this is. Like, to go from that seriousness, where there's all these secret programs hidden from Congress, these SAPs, to now you're going to investigate Epstein. Like, hey, Chair Comer, you're the chair of the Oversight Committee. If you have any outstanding Epstein questions, why the F didn't you ask them last year? Like, you have the gavel. If there's any outstanding 9/11 questions in your mind as the chair of the Oversight Committee in the House of Representatives, why the F didn't you ask them last year or the year before that? So that's where I know Comer, Speaker Johnson, they don't give a F about any of those other issues. But we kind of also know they don't give a fuck about this issue either. And so why not loop together all the non-serious conspiracies and let the wackos have a whack at it? And that's what we're seeing. Like, literally, I think the UAP caucus, what little clout they had, and they had no clout.
Right.
They had none. What little bit of respect they maintained, at least from what I've seen, has just been totally washed away. Again, they don't even know about Barber, but they're going to go and look up Epstein and 9/11. Like, you guys are fools, and you deceived yourself unless you drunk some tainted Kool-Aid, like, whatever. I get it. A lot of people have been right when they're like, you cover a lot of pathetic members of the House. Yeah, because the pathetic members were central in this issue. And yeah, it seems like they were so pathetic that they got steamrolled by themselves. You're going to go from one conspiracy to investigating every secret under the sun? Like, you fucking idiots. Why don't you solve one riddle, then come back to your caucus and say, hey, we did that. Very good. Can we expand that? Can we get more? But no. They failed at their first task, which is David Grush testified publicly. They haven't even been able to get him into a skiff to ask him about the other half of his testimony that he said was classified. Like, guys, you're literally sprinting before you even learn to crawl. And leadership gets that. Leadership gets that 110%. And you guys are just the freaking fools making sure that their plan comes to fruition, where you're just a laughing stock of the nation.
Yeah. Well, let's
prove me wrong.
Yeah,
prove me wrong.
I hope so too. So Matt, what do you have coming up, and how can the folks at home support your gumshoe journalism? And tell us about your. I think you mentioned when I brought up Trump pot smoking with Burchett that you had some other Askapols. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah. So Askapol.com, like I definitely sense. Again, I'm a media professor. Like I've sensed this change in the media landscape where us as the gatekeepers, like we're not gatekeepers. Like how dare us news outlets fact check lawmakers? Look at the polls. Lawmakers are more popular than us in the media. And so that's where I decided to flip the script and give you all my microphone. And so I say the different sectors I'm going after are the unnewsed. You know, no one's covering UAP, UFO issue. No one's really covering crypto. No one's really ever covered cannabis well. And so I'm like, all right, start with these categories. And yeah, I will take your questions. Find us for these issues, Askapol, UAP.com, and literally send me your questions. And I go ask your lawmakers, and you hear the entire exchange. We put the audio out and a transcript of it. Because I truly believe there's a lot more power that you all have as average Jane, average Joe, than us in the media, because lawmakers can laugh us off. But when I go up to Congresswoman Luna and I say, hey, one of your Florida constituents has this question, oh, she perks up. You know, she's responsible to you. You know, same with other members, California, et cetera. And so, yeah, and I'm hoping that in the process, I get to show you all the dark underbelly, because I'm like, hey, Washington, the swamp, et cetera. Like, yeah, it's become this joke, but like, no. It's actually worse than it seems. It's just different worse. And so that's where I'm like, come inside the Capitol with me, hear how the sausage is being made. And yeah, then if you hate it, call your member of Congress and tell them like, hey, change your ways. Ask better questions.
Well, at least we know that the Trump administration is taking the Mary Jane topic seriously. So, yeah. So at least we got that going for us. Anyway, Matt, thank you so much as always for joining us. Again, your fifth time. You're a true regular here. But really, man, I think all of us really owe you a debt of gratitude for just having, you know, the balls to go out and do what you're doing. I mean, you're fearless. It would be so easy to just give them the questions, softball questions that they would love to have. But I would venture to guess that they truly respect what you do, and that you're holding them to account, and you're asking them things that, frankly, the Julian Barnes of the world aren't gonna ask them, because the Pentagon told them not to ask them. So anyway, man, my hat is off to you, and look forward to having you come back on.
I can't wait. And even if they don't respect me, all I care about is making them sweat.
Yeah. There you go.
That's
all right,
the
Matt,
fun.
All right, buddy. Matt Laslo, ladies and gentlemen. All right, take
Cheers.
care. Okay. Yeah. So that was just fantastic. You know, the guy, he is a true journalist in the sense that the guy has ethics. He is asking hard questions. And he's not some lackey of the Pentagon or the CIA. You know, as many of you may not know, back in the 50s or so, you had this thing called Project Mockingbird, which was essentially the CIA was paying off journalists, newspaper editors, and whatnot to parrot CIA talking points during the Cold War, essentially parroting, anti-Russia sort of messaging. All of this came out, or not all of it came out. In the Church Committee, which I think took place, was a Senator Church called the Church Committee. It was around like 1972 or 1973, and lo and behold, it turned out the CIA had been up to some really, really bad stuff that Congress had no idea about. So you had this MK Ultra thing, which was this CIA program where they had these CIA safe houses in San Francisco that the CIA turned into brothels. And you know, this all sounds like just something out of some Hollywood movie, but this is true. You can go and look it up, look at the testimony. So the CIA turns some of these safe houses into brothels. They bring in Johns off the street, and then they drug them with LSD. And the purpose of this was to figure out if LSD was a good sort of a truth-telling serum. And of course, these Johns, they're not going to go to the cops and say anything about it, because they'd go to jail for for soliciting. So the CIA did that. The CIA, it turns out, the bad boys there had this whole thing of they had this chemical weapons development program with the U.S. Army that Congress had no idea about. They weren't asked. They just totally left out. Then on top of that, the CIA also had an assassination program to take out world leaders. If they decided to take out a world leader, maybe President Kennedy would be one. And so the CIA goes up and they get their PP slapped on Capitol Hill at the Senate hearing, and then they wanted to dig into this Project Mockingbird thing, where they were, as I said, literally paying hundreds of journalists, mainstream journalists, New York Times journalists, wink, wink, other journalists. Maybe if the New York Post were around, they might pay like somebody that does video editing at the New York Post to put out some propaganda. So anyway, this was like a really big deal, because not only was the CIA paying off the reporters, they were paying off editors, heads of networks like at CBS and elsewhere. And some of these actually, it wasn't like a cash payment, but as I understand it, some of them were like a quid pro quo. So let's say that you're Julian Barnes working at the New York Times, and he's only going to be as employed at the New York Times as much as he is given access to really important people. So what happens? So let's say Julian Barnes wants to go and interview the Secretary of Defense, and Sue Go, I have no idea if she's still there, Pentagon Public Affairs officer, says, okay, well, you know what, we'll give you a nice 30-minute interview with the Secretary of Defense, but you know what, if you want to do that, you need to help us out a little. Here's a list of talking points that are going to debunk UFOs that, Julian, we would love for you, wink, wink, to put out a little op-ed about it. And anyway, so that was the kind of stuff that was going on in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It was going to come out, but guess who killed it? Former President George Bush Sr. He was the head of the CIA director, and as I understand it, he went in and he said, "Look, this whole thing where we're basically manipulating the media, it's too important for the national interest." And the Church Committee, they only talked about a fraction of it, but that just kind of like goes to show you kind of the little bad things these bad boys and girls in the intelligence community do. But anyway, so we are lucky to have people like Matt Laslo. Excuse me. I also want to say a congratulations, a heartfelt congratulations to another journalist, and I put journalist in all caps, and that would be the editor and founder of the Liberation Times, Christopher Sharp. So I don't know if you guys noted recently, but Dean Johnson, Dean Johnson, who's a former lobbyist, he posted the written questions that were submitted by members of Congress to the various witnesses at the UAP hearing at I think it was House Oversight Committee that I was there for last November, and it was like in 2 or 3 of the questions from the various people from Congress that were there, they all mentioned Christopher Sharp. They all said Christopher Sharp journalist Christopher Sharp reported this, and they were looking for replies. So I want to say, Chris, you're a friend of the show. I'm saying 2 things. One, Chris, you're a friend of the show, and congratulations for actually being in the written congressional record. And then the second thing I would say would be to people like Dean Johnson, Lieutenant Tim McMillan, and some of these other folks that throw shade at Christopher Sharp, especially Dean Johnson. I don't know why he's got such a hard-on for Chris Sharp, but these guys say he's a blogger and not like a real journalist and all this kind of stuff. And and then all I can think of, well, what side are you guys on? I mean, seriously, here you have this journalist in the UK, Christopher Sharp, who is busting his ass to get all of this information out. He is asking hard questions. He is, I've co-written pieces with him for the Daily Mail. This guy has journalistic integrity like you would not believe. This guy is doing it for all the right reasons. I talk to him several times a week. And, he's a family man. He has to take care of his family. He's got a full-time job, and he also does all of this. So my message to people like Dean Johnson and Tim McMillan of the Debrief and others is this. I hope all of you, the 2 or 3 of you that continually go after Chris Sharp, will really stop and rethink what you're saying, because Chris is doing a really great job, and he is under enormous pressure, life pressures, and all of us should be grateful for what he's doing. Does he make mistakes? Sure. God knows I may have made a ton of mistakes on this show, but these people like Chris Sharp, Matt Laslo, and others, they are fighting the fight. And I sure would love to see Dean Johnson and others be way less critical of him, because, all I can say, I don't hear any other folks being mentioned in the congressional record other than Chris Sharp and some other people. So so I think that's important. I also want to talk a bit about Jake Barber. I'm a bit sort of puzzled by the sort of lack of curiosity for members of Congress regarding Jake. I've been aware of this guy for quite some time. Multiple trusted sources that I've known for a very long time have all told me he is the real deal. He is the real deal. Jake Barber is the real deal. And unfortunately, which I was really kind of surprised about, not surprised, is you had this kind of whispering campaign in the Twitter, the UAP Twitter sphere, Reddit, whatever, where there were some individuals who were purposely stirring the pot with Jake. And I'm not going to say who that person is. It's actually more than one. But when somebody's like really going out of their way to say, well, what about this, or what about this, or what about this, but they're really going out of their way. I mean, obviously, people need to do their due diligence and look into things, but. There was, I can tell you 100% that there was a whisper campaign initiated by a couple of individuals to really kind of sully Jake Barber's reputation and make people really kind of question if he is who he says he is, and whether he experienced what he said he experienced. But all I can tell you, I've never met the guy, but trusted sources that I have known for a very long time have all vouched for this guy. So, so that's what I'll say to that. So I'm going to speak directly to Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. First of all, thank you for going after this topic. But there are, as Matt listed for the chairwoman, there are some real pitfalls that I think that you're going to have to really look for if you want this to be successful. Firstly, I agree with Matt that I think that this committee is taking on far too much. 6 months between doing congressional research, getting witness testimony and whatnot, 6 months to cover JFK assassination, which I do think is important to cover because I can tell you, Congresswoman, there are some things that I have been told by multiple sources relating to the UAP issue that are part of the JFK files. Now, whether those have been removed because they know that you guys are going to come knocking on the door, I would highly suggest when you get in there, if you do not find anything in the JFK records about UAP, give me a call. We should talk. But so you've got JFK, RFK, MLK, and then COVID-19 and Jeffrey Epstein. And look, I personally don't think that there's anything to some of those. But if you do, that's great. But move those into a separate a separate task force or whatever you want to call it. Congressman Luna, when you have all of that stuff stuffed into one and it's only a 6-month period, I would venture to guess it will be a Herculean task to try and do all of those subjects properly, to investigate them fully and all of that sort of thing. Otherwise, I think it's just going to be a rush job. And Congresswoman Luna, that's not going to do you any favors. It's certainly not going to do the country any favors. And it also doesn't do the Trump administration any favors. Do this thing right. The UAP, UFO drone issue, or if you want to call them drones or whatever, I mean, that in and of itself would take in excess of 6 months to really dig into it. And the other thing I would say to you, Congresswoman Luna, and again, I mean all of this completely out of respect, trying to give you my 2 cents worth for whatever that's worth. You mentioned in the interview with Matt that you're looking for unclassified evidence. That evidence, that unclassified evidence, there may be some stuff out there that just hasn't seen the light of day, but that unclassified evidence is not going to get to the corruption, to the criminal things that have taken place over decades. It is only going to maybe scratch the surface. So, looking for unclassified stuff, I think, Congresswoman, that is a fool's errand. It's not going to give you what you want. Congresswoman Luna, the thing that is most important for yourself and others that are part of this effort, and again, I'm glad you're doing this, but this has got to have teeth, and no investigation is good unless you know where to look. So, Congresswoman Luna, the key thing that you must understand is that all of this sits inside a presidential SAP. It sits inside a presidential special access program. The classification authority is the National Security Council. It sits in at the same level as the Op Plan 8088, the nuclear war plan, the same as continuity of government operations, Secret Service. All of that sits in the NSC. Now, you may say to yourself, Congresswoman Luna, okay, well, we're going to ask for access for that. And And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But just so you understand the legal quagmire that's going to be, is I can tell you, I think it was right before 9/11, it was the chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senate Armed Service, of course, makes recommendations or deals with the money going towards to run the Department of Defense, the IC, all of that. The chair of the Senate Armed Service Committee went to the White House and to the Department of Energy and said, "I'm spending we're making recommendations for spending a bunch of money on our strategic nuclear weapons, and because we're managing the budget and how much money gets spent on our nuclear equities, I want, as the chair of the Senate Armed Service Committee," this isn't just some lackey, this isn't like Marjorie Taylor Greene or somebody like that. This is a high-ranking, well-respected senator, and I think it was Republican, coming to the White House. He goes to the White House and to the Department of Energy and says, "I want to see what our nation's nuclear war plan is. We are controlling the money going to the military for funding our nuclear equities. So as someone that has the constitutionally mandated authority for oversight of the executive branch, I want to know what our nuclear war plan is. I want to know how many missiles we have in it, etc." Well, you know what the White House and the Department of Energy told the chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee? They told him to pound sand. They told him, "You don't have the legal authority to look at that." Why? Because the nuclear war plan, that is a presidential SAP. It is under the National Security Council. Congress has no legal authority to view those classified products. So when you have this whole thing, and actually the majority of it sits in a presidential SAP. The other sits in the Department of Energy under transclassified foreign nuclear information. Stuff that is in the DOE, and I have no idea what it is, obviously because it's classified, the president cannot unilaterally declassify it. He weighs in on it, but it's like a panel of 5 people, and the purpose of which is to make sure that any president doesn't go and sell a nuclear weapons plan. So nuclear weapons designs, nuclear weapons research, those are all under transclassified foreign nuclear information. So the UAP stuff sits in the DOE, but then a huge chunk sits as a presidential SAP in the White House under the National Security Council. So Paulina Luna, Representative Luna, that is who you got to go talk to, because Trump has the unilateral authority to declassify that SAP. He can do it. He doesn't need anybody to approve it. He can just do it. So it doesn't matter to a great extent what you're able to get the DOD to do or the IC. If Trump doesn't do it, it's not going to happen. Because the thing I can tell you is the Pentagon is not going to do something that the president is not going to be happy with. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican or Democratic administration. They're not going to do it. So Congresswoman Luna, Chairwoman Luna, that is if you were to say, Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show, what do you think my next move should be? I would say, Chairwoman Luna, you really need to go and have a one-on-one conversation with President Trump and say, look, you're the man that can do this. You are the man that can make history. You are the man that can do something that no other president prior to you has ever done. You say that to President Trump, and kind of knowing how that guy operates, I think there is a good chance that he is going to listen. The other thing that if I were you, Chairwoman Luna, is I would say, tell President Trump there is no greater demonstration of the deep state than the UAP UFO issue. As a Democrat, I used to make fun of Trump all the time with his deep state stuff. And well, you know what? I was wrong. Turns out he's right about a lot of that stuff. And there is no better demonstration of this deep state than this. if President Trump, if you can convince President Trump to declassify a large chunk of this thing that's sitting in the National Security Council under Presidential Emergency Action Directive, right there, President Trump is going to prove to the world that this whole deep state stuff is true. And there's no better person to do it than President Trump. I didn't vote for the guy, but you know what? He's my president. I wish him well. I have lots of MAGA friends, lots of Republican friends. And, this is a unique opportunity for President Trump to do the right thing. So Congresswoman Luna, convince him. And I know you can do it. Congressman, blanking on his name, your boss, the head of the House Oversight Committee. It'll come to me in a second. I'm old. But he stated that you have a very good relationship with the White House. So Congresswoman Luna, I encourage you to make that happen and go directly to President Trump about this. And the other thing that I would mention to him is, the whole thing about the drones, that completely took me by surprise. And what that makes me think is that there are the deep staters, if we want to call them that were sending information up the chain that was meant to completely throw Trump off. What I don't think, I certainly hope that Trump really means what he says he is when he wants to get to the bottom of this. And from where I stand, trying to think the best of my president is that I think that the White House was given some bad information, either directly from the National Security Council or from the Pentagon. But Congresswoman Luna, I would simply tell your president, look, they lied to you about these drones. They are lying to you. And worse yet, all that does is that makes Trump look like a fool. It makes the administration look foolish. All of us, we're laughing our asses off. And something tells me Trump is not the guy that likes to be laughed at, and certainly doesn't want his administration to be laughed at. So Congresswoman Luna, I would really appeal to him and say, look, they're making you guys look like fools, and you can't believe everything that the folks on NSC or the people in Pentagon leadership, or at least at the deputy level, are telling you. And then the other thing I would say, and this is not only to Congresswoman Luna and whoever else is going to be on there, but I'll say it directly to all of my MAGA friends out there. We may not agree on much politically, but I think we can all agree, MAGA folks and non-MAGA folks, that this is something that the American people deserve to know. This is something that the guy that you voted for made a promise to be truthful to the American people. And the thing I would remind all of you is, for literally decades, Republican presidents and Democratic presidents have not been truthful with the American people and the world about the UAP issue. So for Trump to go and do this is going to be a heavy lift, because no other president has done this before, and he could certainly fall into the trap of whoever's in his ear saying, you know what, the world isn't ready to hear this. This isn't the right time. All the usual lame excuses. But all of you that voted for Trump, especially all the MAGA folks, the guys that men and women who love this country, that voted for President Trump, it's on you to message to the administration, because, as Matt Laslo said, all of you have a seat at the table. I think probably the only table I would have in the Oval Office would be the kiddies table, like when you were 9 years old and eating with the young folks at Thanksgiving table, not at the kids table, not at the adult table. But all of the MAGA folks out there, you have a seat at the table. They will listen to you, and there's a way to say to your president respectfully, you're being lied to, and they're making you a fool. And none of us want our president to be a fool. And it's but you guys have that kind of influence. And I would also again say to members of Congress, the Republican members of Congress, Congresswoman Luna and Burchett and others, you got to be honest with your president and say to him, look, deep state, whatever you want to call it, all these folks that have convinced every other president since this whole thing has been going on, not to talk about it, they're going to do the same thing to President Trump, and it's that whole what the saying, king without his clothes on. It is imperative for us to move this conversation forward and for transparency to happen on the UAP UFO issue. It is imperative that members of Congress in the Republican Party, moderate and MAGA, you gotta be truthful with the White House. You gotta say, look, we all know this is going on. We all know this is stashed away in a presidential sap. We understand lots of folks and tons of presidents and other powerful people have lobbied against this thing coming out. But you know what, President Trump, you have made all of these promises, and you are I can't think of a good way of putting it, but certainly shaking the tree. So this is something that you got to be truthful with them and say, look, if you want to out the deep state and all that kind of stuff, there's no better subject than that. And and the other thing I would say as well, none of us that have been dealing with this topic behind the scenes, I can tell you the vast number of people that I know that have worked the UAP topic for government or in the intelligence community. None of them, including myself, and I do not hold a security clearance, none of us want to damage national security. Absolutely none of us do. All of us love our country. All of us would never do anything to jeopardize the security, the national security of this country that all of us love. All of us are in agreement that a large part of this can be told to the American people without risking damage to national security. And the other thing that I would say, if President Trump, you happen to be watching, shoot me a DM if you are. I'd love to have a conversation, with you about it. But this is an opportunity, President Trump, for you to truly make history. This is an opportunity for you to say, quite honestly, look, I'm doing something no other president has ever done. And there is no better demonstration of that than declassifying the SAP related to UAP. And Mr. President, you have the ability to do that. You have the legal authority to do that. And of course, I don't know everything that's in this SAP. I certainly haven't been read into it in this Presidential Emergency Action Directive. But I would imagine that there is a great deal of it that can be told that you could declassify, be told to the public, that is not going to jeopardize national security. And then finally, what I would say to two members of Congress, Democrat and Republican, and to this administration, it was President Eisenhower who said, beware the military-industrial complex. And we have seen time and time again that this sort of military-industrial complex has grown like a malignant tumor on this nation. And Congress has no idea what they're spending their money on. You cannot tell me that Boeing, which has a $50,000 hammer, I'm guessing maybe $1,000 goes to that hammer. But you know where else the remaining $49,000 are going to? They're going to black programs like the UAP's legacy CR program. That's exactly where that shit is going. So all of these like these overpriced parts that you're those of you in government that are paying insane amounts of money to Northrop Grumman and Boeing and Lockheed Martin, guess what? They're not going to those parts. They are hiding that stuff away to fund these waived unacknowledged special access programs or CAPS. That's where all that stuff's going. And I don't know about all of you at home, but I know that I struggle to pay my taxes. I struggle to pay my bills. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. All of us in the nation are financially struggling with inflation and putting the food on the table. So I can't imagine a bigger slap in the face to all of us voters when you have a Pentagon and an intelligence community that is spending money like it's going out of style, but even more so, it's like it's one thing if the Pentagon or the IC says, "Hey, I need $1 billion," and then they go and they and $1 billion for Project X, but they're not even doing that. They are padding all of these programs with so much pork and fat so that they can siphon that money off to the programs that they don't want President Trump to find out about, or they don't want Congress to find out about. And there is no more a dereliction of duty to the Constitution than these military contractors, these aerospace contractors that are just skimming these, well, not even skimming. It's like it's cutting off like if it's like a piece of steak, it's like 10% is meat, the rest, the other 90% is fat. And that fat in terms of tax dollars, that is what these defense contractors are going and carving that out, these carve outs for these other programs that they're trying to keep off the books. And this is what happens when you have like corruption in these defense aerospace companies, and so the fact that you've got like the Northrop Grummans of the world and these others that are doing all this stuff. And I would also say these defense contractors are one of the primary folks that are engaging in we'll say retaliation and intimidation and threats of physical violence. These are the guys, these defense contractors are the ones that are doing this to these whistleblowers. Essentially, the IC and the DOD uses them as a cutout so that they can go and do the dirty work and essentially keep the people at the top of the chain, and DOD and IC keep their hands clean. But I would say with great confidence that the C-suite in these large aerospace companies know exactly the highly illegal things that are going on, especially when it comes to physical retaliation and things that frankly just should not be happening in today's world. So anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed the show, and if you enjoyed the show, again, we ask that you hit that thumbs up and subscribe button. We've got another great interview that's going to follow on right after this. Just wait for the little pop-up. And again, I want to thank our moderators, our segment producer Allie, and all of you at home that are supporters of this show. Please tell your friends and family about this. We think that this is a really important topic. We're going to work this year to kind of widen our aperture outside of this UAP issue, perhaps talk a bit more about environment and AI and Bitcoin and who knows what else. Anyway, get a hold of the Trump administration. If you're a MAGA person, tell them, look, we demand transparency. This president, there is no better president, in my view, that has the best chance of outing this thing than really anyone. So I certainly hope the administration does the right thing, makes their true place in history, and Yeah, so that's what I'd say. So anyway, everyone have a great weekend, and we will see you soon on the Good Trouble Show.